O great and unexplainable phenomena, you who is, was, and will be, a source of life that inspires such a gathering of life. Experience us as we are, naked and afraid, traumatized and colonized, lost and stolen, hopeful and imaginative, colorful and meaningful. We choose to gather and celebrate life as well as ourselves. We remember, honor, and learn from those who were before us and built the foundation for which we are beginning to build on. We are tired and at times weary from keeping up with human society. Sometimes we need a break, a place to share without fear of judgment. So we gather in a public space to be with the many poetic images of God. Greetings, tribe. Once a month, under a full moon, religiously traumatized people and individuals navigating life beyond the four walls of religion gather. We gather to listen, share, and express ideas, feelings, and experiences, such as
today are talking about intersectionality and spirituality. And that really just means we're talking about how does like race, gender, culture, economy, class, culture, I said culture twice, sorry. But how all these things affect us in our spiritual walk, however little or however deep our spiritual walk is, we all are spiritual beings. So, some people may not consider themselves on a spiritual journey, but as default, we all are on this spiritual journey. So we are spiritual beings having this human experience. So today we wanted to talk about how do these things affect us? Like, how have we been experiencing these things in our life? Maybe recently in the last like 2 to 3 months, to keep it more specific. But if you are open to recalling when you were a child or any other time in your life, please do. But we're just trying to share thoughts, experiences, memories, stories. Even if you got a good story about how people can understand what the fuck we're talking about, right? Like, because it may be like simple to us, and us being people in public space. We talk about things that are just more in depth in comparison to or contrast to other groups and communities that maybe cover simpler topics. These type of topics really strike at the core of who we are, how we show up, how we are developing, how have we grown, healed, how are we healing, So does anyone want to contribute first? Or
Well, one of the things that was on my mind as you were speaking was like, I think when I can recall when I was little, like at the core, I could say that like I was generally someone that was a thinker and wanted to understand things. And one thing that I realized was like, when I had to go to church a lot of times, like the only time I enjoyed going to church was like on Fridays when we would have like biblical study, because that was our opportunity to have a conversation about whatever topic or chapter that we were reading that day, and we were able to go in depth and ask about questions. We didn't always get answers, and that's one thing that can become frustrating when you're in a church, and especially when you're a kid, when you're like everything you have all these questions and you're just told that this is how things are. You don't question this or you don't question that. So a lot of the times, like on Sunday service, like I just try to escape church and I would see all the like young kids who were also just as miserable as me, or just younger and out of control. And then I would just try to tell their parents, like, hey, just give me all the kids. We'll go in a room. I'll watch them, and that way you guys can enjoy your service. Because I wasn't being engaged. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I didn't like the idea that, like, okay, like a pastor is there, he's talking for 3 hours, but like, where's the opportunity to like take a second and break these pieces down one by one? You know what I'm saying? It's more like it's the same as college, right? That's why in college, a lot of times, like, it's harder to retain information, and students are struggling more during those exams, because you're sitting there and someone is talking to you for an extended period of time, and it's your job to try and recall all that information, So yeah, and that's why I think, like, sometimes people in those spaces got to take a page or two from learning how to teach, right? That's that difference in between knowing something very well and being a teacher and be able to teach others or show others the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my little spell.
That's a good point. Thank you for contributing that. Penny?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it wasn't until like a few years ago I started to experience and learning more about intersectionality. Mm-hmm. And within spiritualism. And that was only because I was going down the track of trying to heal myself, learn more about the things, the disconnections that pushed me to kind of question things. I will say that in a very small, I guess, amount where I did experience it when I was a child, it was in my elementary school. I felt like I was, surrounded by differentness, like different, like race, there was class, obviously different genders. And we all treated each other like there was like no, what do you call it? Like we didn't separate ourselves between those categories. We, in a sense, being kids, but we're not thinking that we're just in an environment that creates this space where we kind of accept ourselves, obviously being a child, you're innocent, as people may say, like maybe you lack experience and all these things. And maybe that's why it's easier to kind of fall into that where you get along with others without having to question their differences and stuff. But then growing up and learning more about the world, about the history, and about current events, everything just jumbled up together. And then trying to make sense of my own life experiences, then I started to understand and see how different and how there's a huge gap between ourselves. Like we talk a lot about community and all these things, and we may come together when it does come to religion. Like we might have one denomination that is more in line with our values than another, and we come together in that sense. Or in spirituality, we have our own kind of methods, our own values as well. And based on those things, we gravitate more towards things that we can align ourselves with. So, I don't know, it's hard now to kind of say, like, I feel like personally and honestly, I think that is something that I'm trying to find, trying to experience this intersectionality within people. Then obviously from there we can go into like groups and all these things, but it's just having an awareness and understanding that we're all experiencing all of these differences in our own unique way. So, yeah.
No, yeah, thank you. That's a great contribution. Harry, did you have any reflection on that or anything you want to add to that?
Not right now. I'm still like processing.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Definitely. Thank you both for sharing. And when you both were sharing, we noticed the connection that you both brought up children. That's interesting, right? As if maybe subconsciously in the background, when we start talking about a time where we're accepted for being different is when we're children. Could that be fair to say? Like any common person, average person can recall as a child being amongst diversity, but not knowing the difference. It's like we grow up and we're taught what is difference, diversity, and why we're these things and why we can't be all these things at once. And, you know, it's like society rules kind of settle into our life. And
I'll add into that even though that may be the case, like being a child and growing up in diversity, we know and we understand that that's not the case for every child, that even amongst groups of children, because they've been groomed or they've been taught that this is wrong and this is how things should be, or like teaching kids there's only one way or there's one solution to one thing. And so they bring that to the spaces where they share, you know, their own experiences with other kids, that kids will experience that amongst their own as well. So it's not that it's always the case that it's in children that it's only experience where there is intersectionality, but it's not just like 100%.
True.
It's where you see it more, yes. But there's just still that interjection of like previous teachings from like their parents or whoever, you know.
Excuse the ambulance in the back. People need saving, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could barely hear it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not picking up that high.
We didn't know if it was that sensitive.
Yeah. No, but no, definitely. And I felt like, you know, part of the thing that it is frustrating about it is that, you know, like you expect, you know, the older people to be the ones to like guide our youth in the right direction. But I feel like they're like, I don't want to say the primary cause, because there, you know, there's a level of accountability I know somewhere, but you know, I feel like a lot of the times, and again, when I say older, it could be like the ratio could be a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to be like, I'm talking like 40s and 50s and then children, but you know, just not really being, I don't want to say present, because some people are there, but they're not necessarily like being actively present in, you know, I feel like the older people are being more divisive, you know, and that's really what I'm hearing you saying when you say like, you know, children and, you know, them being innocent and they don't see those differences. They just mingle with each other. Even now, right, as like a young adult, a lot of the times, you know, because now we're so focused on survival and, you know, being able to have monetary gains in order to live. And now we're comparing our successes to our other friends or folks or people that we don't even know. And I remember I told myself, like, me, you know, I understand the importance of like my path. I'm going here. I'm trying to elevate, and that might not be the same path that you're on. However, within that same coin, like I can't be a person that just because you're not hitting these marks that I'm expecting or wanting, again, because that's our own perception of what we want people to do, and we're trying to project them onto other people. But, you know, I could never be that person. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's important to have, because when we were young, I wasn't worried about where you were going in life. I just enjoyed the time that I spent with you, and that's all that it was. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like as we get older, we forget how to live in that spirit, right? Sometimes people are just asking for a friend. They're not asking for a life coach or any of those things, right? They're just looking for somebody that they can spend some time with, who's not judging them, right? Because a lot of times we're already having these self-projections of how we're failing to meet a standard, right? And that's already hurting us. Now we're being surrounded by people who are constantly reminding us of what we already know ourselves to be. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, sorry, I went on a little rant.
No, rant indeed, but much necessary.
Yeah.
Well said. We agree. You raise a really good point. It reminds me of even like for me, the last 3 months, kind of this season for me. I've lost even more friends in my life. Like people have, labeled as friends, and these people have just, and from my perspective, disappeared. But we had to sit there in meditation and figure out these feelings we were having, where they were coming from, right? And we think everyone pretty much has these feelings that when they feel abandoned or forgotten or pushed aside or ignored, the feelings that correspond with the response to that, isn't everybody, is what I'm saying. Like, it's just that we have to rise to a higher understanding to see, hold up, this might not just be about me. Maybe they didn't do it because of me. Maybe that person was going through something. When we start to open up to considering other people and their experiences, their setbacks, their failures, the things they struggle with, like projecting their failures onto other people or their fears onto other people, And so this season for me has been really, really interesting, eye-opening, like third eye opening type stuff, because it allowed me to start seeing that people were doing these things and moving these ways and making these choices, not because of Aaron Waldron. It was for something else. It's just that Aaron Waldron was part of it, right? Aaron Waldron was a person that has feelings and feels emotions, and maybe considering them my friend came with a certain level of affection, right? And then when we start to see that you're not my friend, you can't be my friend, you're no longer my friend, like emotions do come out of that, So like, how do people handle those emotions? And typically we see people respond in anger, right? This is why we live in a world where it's eye for an eye. And the people that strive to better themselves, achieve maybe even spiritual enlightenment, like Buddha, for example, or something, or like Christ consciousness, they rise above these personal squabbles, these ignorant, actions, and we see this even in religion and spiritual and sacred texts, examples like, forgive them for they do not know, like, why would something like that be said,
Mm-hmm.
And for a moment, it sounds esoteric, right? Like almost the Greeks could take credit for that kind of phrase, but they didn't, and they can't, right? This was said before them, And so then the mere idea, the concept that forgive them for they don't know, forgive them for their ignorance, And then I used to sit there and say, well, how do you hold someone accountable for being ignorant? Right? I struggled with this shit. Like, I was really angry because I felt like, how the fuck can you get away with just being ignorant? There's no way, And so with a lot of inner direction of research and just connecting, we realized for ourselves that you can tell if someone is changing through their patterns, So that whole idea, patterns over promises, I love that. Like, you see people's patterns, and then that's what helps you draw a conclusion. That's in science.
Mm-hmm.
That's in philosophy, right? It's how we understand what is real, right? What's factual? What can be measured, right? And so it's patterns. not what people are saying. You know, they're like, yo, you're my friend, you're my bro. You know, that's saying it, but do you do it? How do you show up as my bro, as my family, as my friend? You know, and I bring this up because it's important to understand too. Someone can tell you they're your friend to your face, but they can be your enemy right in front of your face. Like, this is something that I think religion tried to teach me, but failed at it, you know, for whatever reason. But the lesson being that, you know, the devil, so to speak, this archetype of a shadow, right? The thing that wants to trick you and manipulate you out of fear and ignorance can be staring you right in the face and present to you the very thing you consider love and affection, right? If my love language is gifts and the devil shows up to my door with gifts, does that make the devil a good person? These are the things that religion failed to help me with. You get where I'm going? Like, it wasn't until my recent years that I've been struggling with these things and finding answers for myself. You know, if the devil is coming to my door, do I let the devil in? Yes. Yes. Why not? What is it that you have to offer me? Right? How often do we hear things like that? Right? And then you can swap out the devil with the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Invite your shadow to a table, dine with your shadow, and see what you want. You know, that type of stuff. Because I think, you know, even navigating through the art of war, it's a big no-no to, you know, discredit your enemy. There you go. You know what I mean? Like, it shows you that you should be considering and honoring your enemy as if they are as brilliant as you. Because the moment you don't do that, your ego slips in and says, nah, they don't got it. We the best.
And
they don't stand a chance.
You're no different than they are.
Right. You get consumed by that very thing, right? So it's hard. It's damn near difficult to not get consumed by that vengeance, that eye for an eye, that anger that erupts out of us when people say, I'm your friend, but they don't show it. They love you, but you don't feel love. I support you, but I don't feel supported. You know, you can trust me, but for some reason, I don't trust you. You know, why is it that we have these feelings? You know, for me, it's my intuition telling me you need to be careful, but it's my desire to have friends and connect with people that drowns out that intuition and says, nah, fuck that. This is real, right? They said it. This is real. And then when reality smacks you in the face and you start to see patterns that these people are not what they say they are, these people are not doing what they say they were going to be doing, these people are not in your life contributing the way they claim they have been contributing. Mm-hmm. Those patterns then say, yo, wake up, little boy, little kid. Like, you were living in a fantasy. You know, the Buddhists, right? Alan Watts helps us understand Buddhism so much, right? Especially if we people from the city, from the hood, you know, we haven't experienced India and, you know, the Eastern world where Buddhism comes out of. For me, Alan Watts was that bridge, helping me understand this philosophy, Buddhism, and seeing that, dang, you can't get rid of desire. And then the very things I do desire have to be in question. Because the things I desire maybe, just maybe, are not really what I desire, but what I was manipulated and told to desire. So our desires have to be questioned. You have to go down this journey constantly of, why do I want the blue Kool-Aid? Is there something in that I'm just designed and programmed to want that blue Kool-Aid? How can I break free from the hood, the poor, the ghetto? If I leave physically, geographically, the hood, the ghetto is still in my mind through actions. How do I break free from these things? It's because rooted, I think these are things I like, right? Mm-hmm. Quick example, New Yorker with their Timbs. You can't separate the two, no? You know, but it's because the Timbs have become a part of the identity. That's what we're talking about today, right? This idea that how do we identify ourselves with all these things that are around us? And for me as a human being, Aaron, shaman journey, like how do we identify ourselves when we are losing friends?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it also has to do with the meanings we give to these things. So, like, what does it mean to someone to have a friend? You know, what is the foundation in it? That just creates this whole thing about relationships, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about giving and taking, and and you mentioned before this ignorance, right? I think it's just more of a lack of awareness that people have. And then also we then get stuck with the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So these expectations, we then have to question, is it aligned with the meaning of these things that we create, like friendships, family, whatever, co-worker, any of these things? And so instead of us just focusing on those people in general, it's more of ourselves, like, what is it that I'm putting in here that really is not connecting well with how I'm viewing this person or these people and things like that? But that doesn't say that it's you, that it's your fault. And it's not necessarily saying that it's like anyone's fault in a sense, because I feel like we're all part of this experience.
True.
And there is no, well, I'm right and you're wrong, because, based on your patterns, you're lacking. And so if someone was to really put those things into perspective, let's say is the friend or family member, coworker, whoever, that feels oh, I think there's something going on here where I'm witnessing some kind of like silence or something. Based on those assumptions, that's when you start creating or anger starts to form. And then based on that, then we start to formulate another expectation on top of the initial expectations that we have in friendships and all this, which almost 9 times out of 10 is lack of boundaries. There is mostly like no self-respect, but these are things that were probably passed down to them, that they lack this awareness. So the ignorance, yes, it's something that they haven't learned because they're not aware of. But then how do you, as a friend or just someone that really cares for that other person, that you want to make them become aware of these things? Now the dynamics change where it's like, I'm looking at you like you're my enemy now. So that is where we're like stuck in,
Yeah.
That is the trickiest part of being yourself versus having or maintaining these relationships, like growing into them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that was beautifully said. I agree with a lot of the points that you made. And I think you're completely right. Like, it does start like with expectations, but that's why I feel like friendships are just like any other relationship. You know what I'm saying? We don't do it because we automatically assume that, through these small interactions or the initial patterns, right? Because sometimes you might have someone, show you a certain level, right? Show you patterns that you start to be like, okay, this is, and then you see a certain shift. And again, it might not have to be with you. It could be with that person, what they're going through, or it could be, it might be you. You don't know. Every situation depends on its own. But, I think that that's an important thing to have, right? Like a conversation about, hey, like I'm a person that I really value friendships, and this is, you know, when I'm a person's friend, this is how I am. You know what I'm saying? And how are you? And that way you know what to expect from this person and they know what to expect of you. The other part of it too is sometimes, you know, friends aren't communicating, but they're both mentally thinking the same thing, right? Which is, I'm alone, I miss my friends, you know, where they at, you know what I'm saying? And it just takes that one person to be vulnerable, like, hey, yo, I miss you, or you know, in this season, I really need you right now. Like I'm counting on you guys to help me. And that's our conversations that we necessarily don't have. We just hope that the person comes through. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, I think it's working on being vulnerable and saying exactly what we need, you know? And then you know, whether those person are able to meet those demands or not, it still might be your friend, but right, there's like levels to it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think.
Definitely. Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because over the last few years, we've been blessed, gifted with the experiences we received, however traumatic, dark, or good and loving they may have been. We learned from most of those lessons, you know, and it's interesting. It's not all the time, but you just might find yourself, and this might relate to people in this community, you know, in public space, you know, because we're all working to become our own version of a path maker, right? And so this particular example may apply to path makers. They may experience this more than everybody else in society. So when you're trying to be yourself and you end up being a bright light in a very dark space, you get a lot of attention really quick, right? It's like a flare going off in the mid of darkness, you know, pitch black. And then this light just comes out of nowhere. Everybody within 100-mile radius just saw that fucking flare. I need you to envision this shit, like real shit, okay? Like you're pitch black in the wilderness. All you do is hear things. You don't see even your hands. That's how dark the world is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And immediately a flare goes off, right? Let's do a quick exercise. What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you see that flare? Go.
Oh, it's an attack.
You feel threatened.
Yeah.
Okay. Harry, how do you feel when this flare goes off?
I'm going to the flare. It's dark as fuck. It's dark as fuck. Like I'm trying to find a light.
Interesting. So you're going to go towards the flare, like a lot of other living things do, right? They go towards light at night, like flies and whatnot. But being drawn to the light, right? And that's a great example. You said you felt threatened. And this is interesting. No, you're not wrong. It's just interesting how we respond to this scenario, because in the world, people are responding to this scenario on a day-to-day basis. And when we show up as path makers, we are the flare, the light. And there are people that may respond with, I feel threatened, I'm scared. And another set of people that say, I'm running towards that fucking light, you know?
You said where it's dark, I can't see. Somebody turn on a light.
Hey.
And I agree with that.
Yeah,
however, there are those that have acclimated to their environment.
Come on. Yeah.
And because of that, something so unexpected,
different,
spontaneous, out of nowhere, just shows up, you know, to my territory, to what I've known all my life.
Yeah.
I have to question him.
And it can't be controlled. So then fear settles in.
Yeah.
If humans can't control it, we typically become afraid of it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like we as path makers in the world showing up, and we have to acknowledge this for ourselves, because if not, it's very dangerous. This is why I'm bringing this up. Because we've experienced being that flare and thinking that everybody wanted to come towards the light for warmth, for understanding, for loving. But there are people out there that will run towards that light because there's other people running towards that light.
Hmm.
It's a crazy world we live in. I'm telling you, it's fascinating when I say crazy, because if one person throws off their spiritual flare, so to speak, in a space, on dark space, you have people, a group of people surrounding that area that will respond in a way of, there's people going to the light, I'm going to prey on them. Imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
There's people waiting for flares to go off so they can prey on the people that are going towards the flares. Then there are the people that make it to the flare, and then their expectations are thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Because they put so much, like you guys said, expectations on that flare, that person that is showing their light. They wanted them to become some Jesus, so to speak. They wanted them to be the savior of the world type stuff. You know what I mean? That's not real either.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair. You know?
And that right there, while you're describing all that, like this just popped in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because if, let's say, you're this light of positivity, of life, you know, something that someone has been wanting, waiting for, and they put all these expectations on you, and it's so you can help them come out of their own darkness. But then they realize that that's not the case. Like, okay, so if that happens, is it necessarily the person's fault that came in with this spiritual flare, like you said? Or do I question myself? But in most cases, we end up blaming that person that is this light, that comes with their own experiences to maybe help us come into our own understanding of our own experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we realize, and it's not just with people, it could be with anything. It could be with maybe a book or something that you're looking into, like a self-help thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, it's not working. This is crap. Let me just buy the next thing that's out or whatever. Maybe this is going to work. This is going to work. I'm going to buy this one.
Mm-hmm.
And you try again, and it's the same thing. So it's like almost there's like some kind of similarities with that. So it doesn't matter, because obviously these ideas come from people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if it's a book, it's coming from a person. So what I'm trying to say is, like, when it does come to friendships, creating friendships, all these things, these expectations, like, yeah, like if I feel I might have a friend that I see them, I'm inspired by them, and I feel like I have to work a few things within myself, it doesn't mean that you're not enough, or that you're not in the same, what do you call it? Like, you don't necessarily believe in the same things that the other person believes in.
Mm-hmm.
You still may, but maybe your circumstances, maybe something that has to do with your environment is harder for you to kind of achieve maybe what they have accomplished, or things that you're hoping to accomplish for yourself as well. And then we get stuck on thinking about, oh, it's taking me so much time. And then out of that criticism, that it ends up being a criticism towards ourselves, we start hating the other person. And little by little, it then creates not a intersectionality, but more of a separation, this divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always that yin and yang, like, or
Polarization.
yeah, this polarization of,
Becomes binary almost, right?
like, actually, you're not the light. You're actually the dark one.
Right.
You're coming with all these evil things. And so they might spin it in a certain way because they have to survive.
Right.
So you have to survive with what you have. And then what? You keep repeating the same patterns. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that kind of ties into what we were talking about, but
No, definitely.
It just felt like.
Definitely. And it's awesome too, because public space, thus far, when we've encountered people in this space, it's interesting because 9 times out of 10, people came to this space not knowing they had their own flare gun, spiritual flare gun. You know, like people came to this space and they only saw my flare gun. They're like, Aaron's got a flare gun. Are you going to shoot it off? You know, can I shoot it? Can I hold it? You know, how does it work? You know, like, why is it this color? You know, and I found myself pursuing to help people see that you have a flare gun right on your waist. Did you know that? And they're like, I did not know that. And it makes sense they didn't know that, right? They come from darkness. How many of us take inventory in the dark, right? So like when you come to a light source, that's when you can start seeing contrast and shadows and start seeing, oh, there's things here. I have things. And so for people to see their spiritual flare gun, so to speak, and understand that it's not going to be the same color as the next person, but it's still a flare gun. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's beautiful that way. And people should begin to imagine that we all have flare guns and we all can pop off our flare guns. We don't need to, wait for certain individuals to pop off their flare guns as if their flare gun came from the mighty Alps, the summit of Thor and all these god myths and stuff, and saying, this is special. This is made from special material. There's only one of a kind. No. Everyone has an amazing flare gun, and we don't know what's coming out of it. Like, you don't know what color you got until you pop it off. Kind of like if anyone follows Star Wars, which I love, the concept and philosophy behind a Jedi's color of their saber, their lightsaber. And there's categories to what these colors mean. And these colors are reflections of the wielder, the Jedi themselves. So a Jedi cannot just pick up any lightsaber. Technically, they can. They have the technical proficiency, moving their body. They know the technique. But to wield that particular color of power, it's not anybody. It takes and another great anime that some of us may be familiar with in the community as Demon Slayer. Mm-hmm. They were well aware that these swords were handmade and specifically created for particular Hashiras, master swordsmen. That in the anime series, they spend their life conquering and vanquishing demons. You have to watch the series to understand the demons. We don't mean them literally, like from Christian understandings, but these entities symbolize people that have crossed over and are not living, but have immense strength, and it appears invincibility because they don't die. But through the series, you realize there's these swordsmen that can bleed and breathe and can die at any given time, show you the meaning of life with every movement of their blade and every time they speak. It's really beautiful. And there's many others I'm not giving good justice to, but those were great that came to my mind in terms of articulating on an animated digital film-like dimension the emotions and philosophy that we're talking about, today. Yeah, over anybody's head, but anyone that can really, connect with animes that way, you can definitely see what we're talking about today is seen in those two and many more. Harry, do you have any animes you want to suggest?
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's amazing that you said that, because like one of the Hashiras in that show who, I guess spoiler alert, but he dies. One of his final words to his student is like, he's like, if you're, ever feeling down, if you're ever feeling like you're not enough, set your heart ablaze. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he was like, it was just beautiful. He was passing away, and it was in that moment, right? He's showing how human he is and how he's about to die, where the demon still lives. And during the entirety of the fight, the demon was trying to convince him to become a demon so that he can be immortal. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's beautiful. And one thing I also wanted to add to that was, I think part of why people, what you were saying earlier, Senya, like they keep falling into like doing the same thing, is that same concept of having a disbelief in themselves, right? And again, that gets chipped away at as you get older. When you're young, everybody builds you up, and as you get older, now they're breaking you all the way down. But the second thing is that, I think people don't really take a lot of time to like have like actual plans and routines. This is get a little bit more like, away from spirituality, but at the same time in spirituality, right? People have their doctrines, their disciplines, things that they do day to day to keep their, spiritual connection intact. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing as people. And I feel like we're severely lacking of that, you know what I'm saying? Especially in our community, because growing up, our households have been so chaotic, right? It's been such a lack of order. And, again, that goes back into what you're saying with relationships and friendships, right? Like if you grew up in a household where everyone is distant or love is shown through other different means, well, that's all you have to offer other people,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a big lover of anime for sure. And I tell everyone that, it has great, like, and real deep, like, philosophical concepts if you're willing to get past the fact that it's animated. But, at the same time, you're going to watch something that's in live action that's just as fake, but yeah.
I love what you mentioned. And when you were talking about like the experiences, like growing up and all these things, something that came up was like traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so with traditions, it's harder for people to come up with their own new set of rituals and beliefs. Some may feel that they're letting maybe their culture down if they do something that has to do with the Eastern part of the world. They're betraying their own kind of country because maybe they themselves don't even know, but they're very patriotic. They do what their grandparents have done. And I was thinking about, oh yeah, like if I go back thinking about my childhood, what were my rituals? It was just the mundane, waking up in the morning, getting ready for school, being in school. So basically almost like a 9 to 5, come home, eat. That's the whole week. And then when it comes to the weekend, Saturdays is meant for what? Cleaning. And then what? Sundays are meant for what? It's supposed to be, what is the word? Oh man, I used to say this a lot. To rest.
Resting?
They use it in
Sabbath.
Yes. So like the Sabbath is Sunday, but then we're in church. We're still working. So where is our Sabbath? So it's like, what are the rituals that we're doing to help ourselves that really is enriching us to enrich our kids to maybe have a better day in school, or just for adults in general to have a more productive day at work, and maybe finding like small gaps where they can maybe take a breather or something like that. Maybe during their lunch or something. Was that enough? Maybe it's not. So there's just so many things that go against us creating certain set of rituals that can stick, but it's not impossible to create. Like you can still make those things happen. It's just that we're not taught these things. Is that now is becoming more of a, I don't want to say trend, but we have a lot of people that are in mental health now. And we got to ask ourselves, why? Why is this something that maybe over the years, like this has grown so much, right? And it's like traditions, things that maybe back then it wasn't looked over or at, like people were not focusing on those things. It was just more about building. We got to build generations. We got to build, our legacies and stuff like that. So just work. And here we are again, work. Still doing that.
Mm. That's a good point. Rituals, you guys, traditions and rituals, very patterns that we're following. And that's interesting because here in public space, that's what we encourage people to do, is to take time to reconstruct their rituals for themselves. Like, we empower and encourage each other to do that. So when we see someone saying, you know, I'm trying something new, like I'm trying this new pattern, or I'm gonna go meditate at a Buddhist temple, or I'm gonna try this, or I'm gonna start eating this. We're not sitting here judging them. We're like, hey, that sounds good, man. Give it a try. Let us know how it goes, you know? It's important. And Harry brings up a good point too. A lot of us come from broken families, plain and simple. We come from brokenness, and you know, just trying to create a community like public space where people that have come from broken spaces, they can be heard, recognized. They have people they can talk to that won't judge them or be like, yeah, I'm listening to you with a secret agenda. I need you to do me a favor now. Or, you know, Harry, thanks for coming, but you know, you owe me, so keep coming. You know, like, that doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what this is. And I know that public space is still early on. Like, people are still trying to figure out, how does this work, and why? You know, like people are waiting for that basket to go around, so to speak. Like, that's what it was about. I knew it. You know, you wanted money. You know, and it's like, no, not at all. It's honestly when like two or more are gathered, right? They say that in the Bible. They talk about that in the Bible. When two or more are gathered, God is present, right? They say that on Sundays, right, in the house of worships. But that goes for any community, right? When two or more are gathered, we have community. We have an ability to listen to another and receive criticism, accountability, you know, and love, whether however harsh it may be, you know, because we're all healing. And with that, there's gonna come a lot of fucking pain. You know what I mean? Like, people that are signing up for spiritual awakenings and don't think it's not gonna be painful, they tricked you. You know, that's a trick, that's a lie.
And to add into that whole thing about there is such thing as toxic positivity.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother meeting. Yeah, there's definitely that out there.
Where there is no room for like talking about
negative emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's more of, no, it's gonna be fine. It's
just forget about it, let it go.
The whole thing is just
But it's so interesting that we use the same words, but they use it to an extent that's a little further and a little bit more abusive, right? Like, we tell people it's okay, forgive yourself, let go, right? And then if you do over positivity, hyper positivity, it's like, nah, completely forget about that. You gotta move on, just get a whole new thing, you know. But and it's like, you're not fixing it, you're not resolving anything.
They're just trying to dictate how I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And so robotic, right? Like choreographed.
Yeah.
And when people show up to these worship spaces and they don't got their fucking happy face on, it's like, oh, come on, you don't believe in God? Or come on, like, your faith is weak, you know? And it's like, no, that has no reflection of my faith. It has everything to do with maybe what's going on inside me. Maybe I'm confused. And maybe you haven't helped me clarify things here. You haven't given me an opportunity to ask questions. You haven't given me an opportunity to seek advice. Because everywhere I go, you're going to tell me the same ritualistic phrases that keep me in the same ritualistic traditions, that keep me in the same horrible feelings.
And I think that's where intersectionality then comes in.
Definitely. In a big way. Definitely. It becomes really difficult. Really difficult. You know, I'm sure every time we've come together, nothing we've spoken about has been simple. These are things that we just don't have answers to. We may respond as if we have an opinion or have a clue, but these are things that are just like, we don't know what the fuck is going on. But somehow we're all experiencing something like this. What's that about?
Yeah.
You know?
No, I hear that, and in that same breath, it's like, I feel like I can literally hear the devil's advocate, right? Or the other side to that coin, which is, you got to have those friends that are going to tell you, you know what I'm saying, or hold you accountable, right? Like, you know, because you can't have people around you that just always going to, you know, be okay with what you do in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but then again, right? Within that same breath, that could be me projecting my values onto you, right? Like it's that constant, you know, I find it funny because I just feel like a lot of things just come back to, you know, balance. You know what I'm saying? Find the balance between.
And it's interesting you say balance, because I think we forget something that we are probably not conscious of. And it's that some of us might see balance, but through equality, like it's just equal. It's just like that. It's not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Balance is not like we project or associate it with this imagery of two.
Like complete steadiness. Yeah.
It's not that. Like balance is just being in sync with one another.
Only one of us, or only one of our ideas is valid.
Right. Only one of us can have a great idea. You know, the other has to support that idea. You can't have two parties that come up with a great idea, because then it's like, this is not balance.
Right. And balance isn't about equality, right? It's about equity. You know what I'm saying?
Elaborate, please. Equity.
I wasn't ready to elaborate. No, but like, you know, real balance is, right, like people, you know, getting what they need, not necessarily doesn't mean that they're going to need the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know? That's a good one. Yeah. Well put. I see what you did there. Yeah, that's a complicated way to describe it, but you did good.
Yeah,
it's based on need. Yeah, and then our needs have to be questioned, because sometimes we put our wants as our needs.
I agree.
That's like maybe a Western culture thing.
Yes, the first thing that came out, I'm like, that's that American shit, you know?
Yeah, it's American shit. Yeah,
it's like nothing is ever enough.
Yeah, there's this want, take. And again, I feel like that's literally the identity. That's the identity associated with our country, right? Like, and why we get into so many problems with our foreign policies and our foreign affairs, because we keep on trying to spread our way to every single country through, you know, our own means, right? You know, which is giving people the poison and then handing them the antidote. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like the whole just going around the world indoctrinating, or like how still today they still do it, going around spreading Christianity and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Or what I've seen recently, and I do believe is on this side of the hemisphere, going to like the western side of the world. I mean, the eastern side of the world, excuse me. And they're introducing these tribes, to like our processed things, candies and all these other things. People that have never digested anything like that, experienced something like that, but they're thinking like, oh, I'm bringing them this happiness. Like, this is the good news. They're missing out. It's like, but what if they haven't been lacking those things that you think they are? Like, what if their own expression of happiness obviously is something that looks completely different than what you're saying, but they're experiencing happiness? Like, it's the audacity of, you know, people in general thinking and believing that you need this. Like, you know, you have to have this. Come on, like, here, try it, drink it, and all these things. And then later you find out people start getting sick. It wasn't meant for that. Maybe that was meant for you. You know,
that's beautiful. That analogy can be applied spiritually, psychologically, economically, and physically, right? The stuff we're talking about here. You know, in the background, we talk about decolonizing ourselves. How do we go about that? Which is a very complicated process. We still find ourselves on this theopoetic plantation that has no fucking bounds anymore. Like, there's no limits. And so the point here is not to escape the plantation. That plan is gone. You know that, right? Like, that's not a plan anymore. The plan now is to, you know, figure out who are we in relation to all this nonsense? You know, that's the self-discovery aspect. We can still be on the plantation, but we can break free through ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, and people may be like literally looking at that and saying, no, you can't. You're still on the plantation, but you don't understand that in the physical world, that's the bound of the limitation of this plantation. The spiritual realm, it has no foothold.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? And so that's why if we go inward through ourselves, discovering ourselves, connecting with ourselves, connecting with our higher self, and anyone can translate that to God, source, whatever you want, that is our way out.
Yeah.
Not escaping the plantation, but we just fucking straight up vanish internally, like going inward spiritually. You may have my body on your plantation, but my mind and spirit is with the universe. You know?
It's like when people question, and I know throughout history, there's been a lot of figures like that, that they've been in harsh environments and situations.
Yeah.
But they're still intact. Their mental, their whole like state of mind is not broken down, like it's not taken down. And people question, like, how are they able to do that? And then something I was just thinking about, it's like, I think we have to question each and everything that we've been forced upon, like to do, to associate ourselves with, things that we ourselves did not decide. So then going through each and every single one of those things, and it will take time. I'm going to try this myself, actually. I'm saying this, but it's because I'm thinking of doing this myself. And then from there, it's like, that's when you start seeing like, well, those things do not align with my values or my beliefs. These are separate from me. I don't agree with those things, but however, I do live in an environment or society that still does take on all of these beliefs and things like that. How do I myself then, how am I able to live or survive under these circumstances? And so maybe like mentally, when you start to dissociate yourself or like decouple yourself, decoupling yourself from like these old, ideas and things that don't align with you, then maybe or maybe that's the beginning, the start of you, as you mentioned, like becoming that path maker.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it reminds me of like our political system, right? Like we clearly have this system where we have these candidates that nobody wants. Like if you ask the majority of people, like we don't want either of these people. You know what I'm saying? So we're clearly, subscribing to a system that's not working for us. And at that same time, like people are so afraid of that other thing, right? Because when we get to talking like this, in my mind, I'm like, what if we just created our own political party, right? Which there's already those third parties that completely they just end up either just being culminated into, the Democrats or the Republicans at some point, right? But Jesus, my brain. But yeah, so my thing with that is like people act like, and again, I feel like Hollywood does a great role of this, right? They give you these movies and they show you dystopias. And it's almost like you're brainwashed into thinking that you live in a completely normal society when you also live in a dystopia. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like until people come to that realization, it's hard for us to get to, being able to have a new system, without people being so afraid of what's to come. Yeah.
It's a good point. Good point.
And that's interesting because even with Hollywood, a lot of those ideas, they do come from authors where they make the best-selling book into like a movie and stuff like that. So maybe those type of things are the experiences that author, that individual experiences, or how they perceive the world, right?
Yeah. Another good point to add to that, just for people to consider, the government has a film budget, media budget.
Yes.
And so there's There's actually movies every year that are created because they have to be created. The government, your tax-paying dollar, our tax-paying dollars pay for things like that. That's money that has to be spent. They have to create media projects with particular agendas, particular stories, particular subliminal messaging, because that is part of the MK Ultra, program in terms of this media, this approach to using psychology and media to manipulate and condition the American people. And this has gone beyond the American people. But this is just what's happening and has been happening. This is no secret. It's not like Aaron had to break into Area 51 to get secret files. This is stuff that our own government has already admitted to over decades ago. These files can be found online that you can read that are declassified. The government pretty much pissed in our face and said, what are you going to do about it? And they've done it many, many times. And so this is not a conspiracy theory. The government has a huge budget that you can see that, that you wonder to yourself, who the hell is paying for all these movies? Because I'm looking at actors being paid almost $1.5, $2 million. And it's like, for a movie, that's just one of the star leading roles. Like, what about everyone else that got paid? Like, how much money really does go into a film production? And to think that our government has a massive budget for that shit,
and yet we're in debt.
Yeah. And you gotta, feel bad about that. But the point here is, like, they are pushing out information not just through newspapers and the news on television. They're pushing it through films. And more importantly, our younger humans, the children, are watching these films.
Yeah.
Because think about it, the government is not invested in making films about 1917 or any historical, they're invested in children films, young adult films. You know why? Because they're more programmable, right? If I put these images in front of you, they understood that the human mind subconsciously puts it together. Like, we fill in the blanks. It's crazy, and they know this about us. I think that's the scarier part. Like, we're on this journey of knowing ourselves, and as we know or begin to know more of ourselves, our vulnerabilities, our weaknesses, our strengths, we start to realize the government already knew these things about us.
So it's like the problem is created, but then also the solution.
That's what Harry said. Yeah.
is given.
Right. And so that's the challenge of trying to be a path maker or be yourself in today's modern world. It's very challenging, but it takes a lot of effort, and it really does help to be among like-minded people. Like, if for whatever reason anyone's listening to this and you feel like alone or like, no one's getting you or whatever, like, this community symbolizes like that bat signal. You know what I'm saying? Just, we're here. You know what I mean? And we're trying not to go anywhere. We're trying to set up a real firm foundation for years to come, because we know there's a lot of people out there that needs community like this, where they can be embraced, they can be loved on, they can be offered patience, as they're transforming and healing and understanding. You know what I mean? Like, there's no judgment here. You know what I mean? And I really do mean that. I think a lot of people think that's strange, or I'm lying, but there really is no judgment, because we get it. We've been there. Like, we're human. Everyone's trying. So, like, if you heard with anything that we have said or anyone else has said in this space, don't take it as like threatening or attacking. If you feel like it was towards you, then maybe you should question that. Because I didn't drop any names. I didn't talk about anyone specific. But if you feel like what we're talking about relates towards you in that manner, like that could be you, then hey, reach out, connect. If you need community, we're not like other communities. We're not hounding people. we're here just to really help, man. Like, and when people are ready, like, and people will be ready in their own time. So, it happens. But in the meantime, we are here. We're still going. This wasn't just it started out for a dissertation, but now it's just more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, like somebody got to be popping off these flares, bro.
Yeah. No, I think the work that you guys are doing is amazing because, being, here in the inner city, and I say this every time we talk to you guys, but you guys always give me the perspective that the inner me feels like I need to stay with, right? And that's the thing. Like here, I'm dealing with so much interactions, and I don't want to say pettiness, but like back into this New York City bubble of things that I know don't matter. You know what I'm saying? But this is what all the chatter around me is about. So it's like it's hard to elevate in the way that I need to when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to like looking at things with the lens, because the lens, it's there, right? When we have these conversations, like I can understand exactly what you guys are saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you guys with the comments that you put out. And even if I don't, that doesn't matter. But the point is that I think it's important for me to stay in that mindset as I go out, and I do my best. But I feel like you guys just, I don't know. It's like you guys like just re-energize my what I'm saying, my force field. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very refreshing every time I come on here and I talk to the both of you. And I just want to take the time to just, give you guys your flowers and just to know that I appreciate the both of you very much.
Oh, we appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of love.
Yeah, a lot of love. Of course. And you're right. That's a good point. In terms of context,
Yeah.
We have separated ourselves from the city.
Yeah.
That reminds me, and this is a spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen The Quiet Place.
Mm-hmm. Seen it.
Nice.
So the first opening scene, and it talks about the noise level in New York City.
Yeah.
That right there was like
equivalent to a constant screaming.
Oh my
you imagine
God.
that?
Living day by day to constant screaming.
All day, every day. Just like this. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's my thing too. It's like, the reason why this conversation is so important to me is because like, I am in a leadership role when I go into work. You know what I'm saying? And even now more than before, this is new information to you guys, but like, I got hired as a sports-based youth development coach. So again, this role for me is even better than being a PE teacher because, as a PE teacher, just to get this off real quick, I would have to, teach, a variety of units and, do my lessons and they leave. But with this new role, I take in, 10 to 15 students. They're mine. We go from class to class together. I welcome them in the morning. We have a group conversation. And, I check in with them at the end of the day and I make sure they're doing their work. So it's a lot more, there's an aspect where we get to work on our bodies and we're going to have that time there. But for the most part of my day is really just making sure that I'm there for them, being on top of them and trying to show them my value so that we can have build a strong community within the school. You know what I'm saying? So it's important for me to keep my perspective, open and also know what's important so that I can also tell them, what's important. Not necessarily in a way that's diminishing what they value, but just opening their eyes to what is out there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're extremely proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We figured, you were silent for a minute. You were brewing on something, but we see now what you've been brewing on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, there's been a lot of stuff, what I'm saying, in regards with family and friends and also me, I would say this year, I spent a lot of, more time than I've ever did by myself. You know what I'm saying? So, I definitely have a better understanding of who I am, over the course of this year. And again, I also realized the amount of impact that, my everyday energy can have. It's kind of funny, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, going into this new building, I'm like, should I be a little bit more watered down? Because my energy is very high energy. And when you're used to that, that's the expectation you have every day. So it's hard for me to get away with having a bad day, right? Because immediately you're gonna know it. And I don't want to give people that ability to see that of me. So I'm trying to like figure out like, okay, like what kind of persona should I take? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's important to like just be myself, but like I said, like I don't want to be able to like, walk in the building and people can just see my emotions on my sleeve. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
But yeah, anyways.
That takes time and maturity. You'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like I'm doing a good job of like not necessarily like projecting that energy, when it's bad. But like I said, it's still very noticeable. And then I get that toxic positivity you guys are talking about, right? Where it's like I'm going through something, everybody wants to like uplift me up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Vicariously through their, the students and what they do on their own, I might end up, get a chuckle in, and then my day might start changing. You know what I'm saying? Because again, like, they're children, and their conversations, you know what I'm saying, can get crazy. But I would say that I am very fortunate to be in this position. I'm happy to be in this position, and I'm looking forward to that work, and I hope that what I say to those kids, sticks with them. That's all you can hope for. I'm definitely gonna try and come to more of these. I just like, it's so funny, right? Something happened like the other day that pissed me off. That like but the following day I had to go to like this little staff outing, and literally I'm not telling you guys to do this, but this is what I need to work on, because like I already know that I have to go to this outing on Friday. Thursday, things hit the fan, and like it completely slips my mind. And then that same Friday, like I get that message 2 hours before the event, and I'm like, oh snap, okay, like I'm going, and da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I gotta be more mindful of like, deadlines and appointments and things like that, because I feel like so easy, like once like my emotions are being flared up, I completely forget about what I got going on. And that happens even in terms of like my workload, right? Like I know that I have certain things to do, and then once my emotions get in the way, it's like I drop what I got going on. So that's inner work. But anyways, yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. That's also why we started the newsletter, Public Space, and it's different from newsletter we started the first time, which was like a Carrier Raven. But the Public Space newsletter is every week, every Wednesday. And it has the link to the upcoming gathering. It also has the reminder on there of when the gathering is, what we're talking about. It has even events. We started doing a Friday night movie. Basically, if you have time, or if you just feel like it, you come watch a movie with me. And I have a bunch of movies in my private collection. And
we saw Boys in the Hood.
We've seen a bunch of them so far, but a lot of just great classics, not too old, but great films. But yeah, that's a free event that we created. That's on there. We're starting a between film dialogue coming up, like a course on different films. So the ones we did in the beta, we're not repeating, just in case people are like, you already did that. Yeah, I was like, well, now we got different movies. So
yeah. So in terms of like, like our Saturday, like monthly gatherings, right? What are ways that, us as people from the, public space, could, do better to contribute?
Well, today was actually the first day you offered your email, so we can add you to the event, and that way you'll see what we're talking about. We'll do that after this. And if you did sign up for the newsletter, you'll start getting it Wednesday.
Okay.
But it's on that landing page at the very bottom. You just
I did that.
All right, so then we got it, and you're on the roster. and you'll get the next one on Wednesday. And they'll just keep reminding you every week leading up to the event, because we started noticing everybody was really busy, not just you, but everybody was similarly busy. But we didn't want to hound people, you know, like, oh, do me a favor, please, and show up. Like, if you wanted to show up, show up. You know, I don't think.
And then it kind of does come out churchy.
Yeah, we're not trying to do that at all.
Yeah. Well, and my situation is more like, you know, I would agree to it like on a Wednesday or a Friday, and then next thing you know, Saturday, a phone call in the morning from my brother here, phone call from this person here. Okay, let's go. I play basketball. Then 5 o'clock. I'm like, I was supposed to go to the thingy. Like that's how that goes. But yeah,
it's all right, man. Look, you're still young, man. You know, like you're figuring out a lot of shit for yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no judgment on this end. You know, like we're here and we will be here at the set times that, you know, have been advertised.
Yeah.
We always are advertising it on our stories, Instagram, Facebook. I see you, you know, you see it.
Yeah.
But like we're constantly, it's the same information, man. Like, you know, but yeah.
And what are ways, like, just like as a person who is entering this dialogue with you guys, what are certain things that, you know, would help contribute to our conversations?
Life testimonies, stories, life experiences, things that you're working on. You know, the goal here is for everyone to reach a level of vulnerability with one another. You know, and we're just trying to share through our own life stories and experiences that these things are happening. They're not just in books. It's not just with Aristotle and Plato. Like, we're living these things, you know what I mean? And more importantly, you know, this space is not for everybody, because when you get to a certain part in your life or your spiritual journey where you need support, that's when you'll need a space like this. But if you're not out there trying to be a path maker, doing it, you find yourself with very minimal support. You're going a path that nobody is following, nobody can follow, and you're feeling called, you know, by some higher, you know, energy or spirit, say God, saying you got to do this, and it's tough, and no one around you can help you. Well, public space can be that between this, that filler for you. You know what I mean? To help you get to where you need to get to, because we've been there and we knew how challenging and hard it was. And that's why we started this. This is not for Aaron's ego. This is for the rest of the world, and to help them get out of their dark places, because it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, you get to a point where you think you're healed, and then you figure out you ain't healed shit. And then you keep going. And so when you're in that motion of keep going, you need a rest stop. This is that. And that's why it only takes place once a month, because you all got a lot of shit going on between that month. But at least we should take at least a moment, a mere moment, you know, under a full moon. We've completed this cycle. We're on a new month, to just come together and check in with each other and say, yo, how you doing? You got anything to offer? What's been going on with you? You got any wisdom? You know what I mean? That's what this is about, man.
No, yeah, that's perfect. That was very well said. I feel like you just spoke to the inner me, because that's exactly like how I feel. Like, I'm not necessarily like, you know, I know how to present I know how to give you a happy person. That doesn't mean I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean I'm healed.
Right.
I just know how to keep going. You know what I'm saying? So what you said just really resonated with me very well, because I feel like I do need these. You know what I'm saying? I could a little pit stop and just take a moment to, like, you know, reassess my life and myself. You know what I'm saying? And also, like, tap in with you guys and see how you guys are doing as well.
Yeah, man. You know, it's true, because you know, the sad reality is one day this thing won't be happening. You know, because we really don't have a baton to pass. So when we're done here, this is done, unless someone else picks up the baton. But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm glad that you feel that way. But again, there's no guilt or pressure, man. You're not obligated. The door is always open. Come and go as you please. All of us come and go. There's no constraints here. There's no tricks here. You You know what I'm saying? I promise you.
Or that you got to come in here with some book reports.
Yeah, no. You ain't got nothing. No, for real. Some people come and they feel like they got to show out. And it's like, no. If you wanted to come and you're in the mood of just listening, then listen. You know what I mean? But you are not obligated. No one's like keeping count. I promise you. Like people, you have no idea the messages I get from people that are like, I feel so bad I didn't come. I'm so sorry, my Lord. You know, like, and it's like, nah, it's not like that, man. Please. You know, like this was for you. It's for me too, but I'm not here to like just talk about myself and praise me.
We all learn from each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, we learn from everybody, and we need that. So when people show up, we learn more. That's the excitement, you know what I'm saying?
I think the feeling for me is more so like just as a friend, you know, and being supportive and wanting to work on being a supportive friend, you know. I would say like that's where like, you know, the feeling that feeling stems from, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But you know, and also like just like I said, finding more ways to like help the cause, you know. I don't know, like that's just me. Like I just want to be able to be that person for all my friends, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know, to just know and feel like I got their back, because I really do. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, in my humble opinion, like, you know, y'all are the reason why, like, you know, I don't feel like in life this might come off like very like, I don't know, pessimistic or dark, but like there ain't a lot to look forward to. Like I look forward to my friends and when I get to see them and speak to them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what makes me feel alive, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. You're a Libra sun, so Libras love their friends, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And they have a very deep bond with their friends. So we get it. We got our little Libra here in the house.
Yeah.
Kaylin. So she's very similar. You know, she's about her friends. You guys are ride or dies, you know, like
Yeah.
what you need, you know, like
Yeah. Literally.
We get it. But you know, we also like to remind all of our Libra type friends that, you know, it's not always what other people need, but it's what you need too. And you should, you know, occasionally just let that be known, you know, like, what do you need? Because maybe we can offer something to support you, you know, like you said, it's what we need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess to my point, public space, I don't need people to show up just to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I need people to be themselves.
Yeah.
So if you're asking me what I need people to show up as themselves. And that does include if you want to show up in a shitty mood or in I don't want to talk. That's fine.
And I love that you say that, because we've been bred to believe that you need to show up like a fourth person. You know?
On your good foot.
I always bring this up with him, this whole salesperson thing.
Yeah.
Because I was a salesperson and I did not enjoy it after a while.
It's exhausting.
It went against me and just all those things, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If obviously you've been a salesperson, but
yeah.
People please.
Yeah. But I experience, and obviously because we're healing, we're always in this process of healing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That the showing up to work like all positive and stuff when you're not, or maybe it might be something is happening at work that you don't necessarily agree with, and then you got to be all, which that's in my case, especially with school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've experienced before being part of groups that then this whole like positive thing was just out of control. Like every day you gotta be part of this group and talk to them. Everyone is sharing all positive things. Like there was no boundaries, no nothing, none of that. But when you mentioned yours, like it reminded me of what I'm struggling with right now. And because of that, like I have to not make myself believe that like I don't belong in this, because the people, they're just a fragment. They're part of what I'm trying to do. So not necessarily taking it as, oh, maybe this is not for me. Because it seems like almost everybody here is exactly the same way. Which you already know that in the past, I experienced something similar. And I just, you know, abandoned ship. But we learn from our, I don't want to say necessarily our mistakes, but our choices.
Experiences, yeah.
Experiences, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah, on that note, man, we'll add you to the calendar event thing, but again, come as you please, as you need. You may find yourself not needing this space for a particular month, or like you said, something may come up where you're angry or something. We completely understand.
And you don't have to apologize.
You don't have to apologize. But if you do want support outside of this moment of an event, reach out. Like, how you have our thing, but we're not hiding. We're just busy. It's a difference, you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
If people only knew, right? But we're all busy, but we love you. We want you to remember that and remind yourself of that. You are loved greatly. And that goes for all of our community members. We love all you guys and girls.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
I love you guys too. You guys mean a lot to me, and I definitely would not be who I am today without your contribution, for sure.
Same.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll see you guys. All right. Take care. Okay.
Take care.
Have
Love
fun.
you.
Have a good one, y'all. Love you guys.
Later.
Bye.
Later.
All right. So if you like what you heard today in today's public space dialogue, not only share, but join us. Subscribe, but more importantly, join us. We'd love to hear your voice and get your input. Join the dialogue, the ongoing dialogue. Like we mentioned before, this space is a rest stop. You need it, we're here. And on that note, we look forward to the next full moon gathering. Until then, be well.